Ash, how does one go from working in a corner shop
Yep.
to being a CEO, of a global company, a co-founder and a CEO
Yep.
of a global company? I mean, who teaches you that?
What you need is, I think, fundamentally, you need clients who trust you. Because when you're dealing with global clients who have got offices all over the world and they've got all sorts of challenges, whether it be cultural challenges, macroeconomic challenges, talent challenges, all of those challenges, they just need organizations that are consistent, that they can trust. So having the business sponsors trust you is really, really important. But that trust comes from consistent delivery. So they're joined at the hip. If you consistently deliver for your clients, they will trust you more. And you've got to show them how passionate you are about what you do and about their business.
Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Against All Odds. My name is Daniel Coker, your regular host. And today we have a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, Mr. Ash Bhopal. Ash is a CEO of not just one, but two. I don't know how you do it. Of not just one, but two global companies, which he'll tell us a bit more about during our conversation. And he's someone that I've gotten to know over the years. We kind of live around the same area, and he's someone that I respect greatly. He has a very inspirational story, especially to people from a diverse background. He started from very humble beginnings, and I'm sure there's a lot that we can learn from our conversation with Ash today. Ash, you're welcome to Against All Odds.
Thank you for having me and giving me the opportunity, Daniel. Really appreciate it.
Fantastic. And if you're watching this for the first time, this is a platform that we're building to capture stories like Ash's, to inspire, to let people know that it's possible.
Yep.
It's possible. So, Ash, maybe just to start, we tend to ask or basically dig into your background because that sort of forms the context for who you are, today. And I happen to know that you came from very humble beginnings, so maybe just tell us a bit about your background.
Like I think most or a lot of individuals who come from diverse minority backgrounds, my parents were immigrants to the UK in 1961.
Okay.
And my father, who went to university in India, wanted to go to university in the United Kingdom. That plan didn't work out. Ended up working in his uncle's convenience store in a inner city area of Birmingham called Handsworth, and then over the years working there, eventually went on to run the store and take it over from his uncle. It was Handsworth. If anyone knows Handsworth, it's a very diverse melting pot of cultures, minorities. My father would sort of slap bang in the crossroads of it's an area called Handsworth Villa Cross, and the area has suffered underinvestment. As you can imagine, a lot of inner cities are underinvested in the UK. So underinvestment, it seemed culturally very difficult to navigate because you've got different minority backgrounds with different cultures, different values, etc. I think the convenience store was almost like a meeting spot. It was a meeting spot for conversation, whether it be conversations around people's culture, values, religion. It was a meeting spot for food, sharing of food. My father
Was it Afro-Caribbean?
Yes, it was multicultural food.
Multicultural foods, okay.
A lot of Afro-Caribbean food. Okay. So we would even mix up the curry for
Oh.
jerk chicken, and we'd mix that up in the store, and all the variation of spices. But it would also cater for the Southeast Asian community, the Chinese community, the Irish community as well. So that was a real probably the best description of growing up in a really diverse, multicultural area, which was threaded together by religion, different races, different foods, different folk music. So I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed living in Handsworth.
And you went to school in Newtown as well?
Yes, Newtown, yeah. Another inner
city
city area, which again, very underinvested. Went to a school called St. George's. I sort of laugh sometimes because my children go to a school called St. George's, but in
my son goes there as well.
completely different environment to the St. George's I went to in an area called Newtown. And again, it's a very tough, unforgiving inner city, and to go to school there on a daily basis, you were challenged, and you suffer all sorts of difficult conversations, whether it be with teachers, whether it be with careers officers, whether it be with friends, family, etc., around how your schooling you felt wasn't probably adequate. But you have to sometimes work with the tools you've got. So Newtown was again another challenging part of my upbringing, I guess.
And then from there you moved on to Brunel to study business. Like a lot of people. How did that happen, and what was the thinking behind that?
I didn't do a vocational degree. My brother did. He went off and done I think orthodontics, and I had lots of friends going off to do medicine and lawyers and accountants, and sadly I probably wasn't that bright to do those vocational courses. So all I ever thought was like business studies and marketing or something like that. And that was my interest to do business or business studies. Lo and behold, I don't think business studies courses set you up for being running a business or an entrepreneur always, but they give you sort of building blocks. So I enjoyed my time at Brunel. Really, really enjoyed my time, and it was probably the first time I left the inner cities to go to university. First time I went on a flight when I was 18, so I'd never been on a flight previously.
Wow.
So got to go on a flight with university. We went, and part of the course was to redesign a part of Spain from a tourism point of view. So that was a real eye opener for me. Getting on a plane and first time holding a passport, and almost everyone else in the course, like we've been skiing and we've been here, and sitting there and thinking, wow, and I'm only starting. But yeah, it was. Again, I can't ever regret going to university. Met lots of really good friends that are friends now, and got to start my journey of travelling and then eventually left university and took a job straight into London.
Yeah. What your first job? Tell us a bit about your first job and how that's basically. What did you learn from that, experience?
There's two. There's my first job and there's my first real job.
Okay.
when I left university, I wanted to be wanted my own business. So I started to be a nightclub night promoter. So I thought I'm going to put on student nights. So I didn't know that. I started to put on student nights because there was no nights that really catered for both Southeast Asian and Caribbean music or hip hop and whatever the pop culture at the time was. So it was a lot of. So I actually did student type nights up and down the country for a good probably year and a half, and thought, this is good. But then I had to get a proper job, as my parents would keep reminding me. So I started doing a simple job. I think I got a job with Sainsbury's onto the graduate program. But I probably thought, I think I met someone at Sainsbury's and who was in the marketing department, and I said I want to work in the department, etc. And he'd just been in that position for years, and I almost thought, well, for me to get his job, he has to leave, and he's been here for 30 years or 20 years.
Yeah.
So it's never going to happen. And then I sort of fell into the recruitment business. I went to work for a couple of entrepreneurs, Les Clark and Andy Baker, who've got a real special place in my heart, and entrepreneurs who had a recruitment business which specialised in telecoms called Glowtel, and it was international. It was taking telecommunications and building telecommunications networks with end clients all over the world. So got to do a lot of travelling, got to lots of different countries, lots of different cultures. The US, Europe, Asia, Middle East, and just thoroughly enjoyed it. And then...
So what stage did you then realise that you had possibly gained enough knowledge to venture out on your own? Because we've been doing this podcast for quite a few months, and one thing that comes across in all the people that we speak to, because people like yourselves who are highly successful, is that you need to have the requisite knowledge. You need to know what you're doing. Whatever your chosen craft is, you need to perfect it. To a point where you can add value and have impact. So at what stage did you realize that, okay, fine, I think I've got enough knowledge and I can have a go at this? Before we get into this episode, I'd like to say a very big thank you to our sponsors, Consulting Professionals and Alexander Ash Consultancy, who are transformation consultancy specialists and talent providers. Now let's get back to this episode. I totally agree. I think if you don't know your tradecraft, I call it tradecraft, and you don't know it well enough to show your client that you've got the passion, the understanding, and the knowledge of their business, because going in front of a client and not knowing their business and what your tradecraft is, and really showing there's a synergy there, clients will see through it straight away. And so that was really, really important for me to really understand what we were really good at and what I was really good at. The turning point to go on and actually make the step, that's a difficult one, because as an entrepreneur, most entrepreneurs have got a half decent job and a half decent salary. And at the time, me and my lovely wife Maya was living in a very small 2-bedroom flat in Tooting, and she was studying. She's a lawyer, isn't it?
Yep, she's a
top lawyer, high flying lawyer.
Yeah, she's worked for a couple of large, 2 of the Magic Circle firms. And spending that time in that small flat in Tooting, Beck, in London, and having all sort of grand ideas about doing this for yourself, and I want to do this, and she'd be my sounding board. Probably completely did a head in for like a year. So I can do this. I can do this. I'm going to do this, and then I think it was half of her saying either put up or shut up, or get on with it. And then I had my business partner at the time, who was again in my other ear saying, look, we can do this. So I think any entrepreneur who is going to take that risk needs someone, and I hate to say this, push them off the side of the cliff. You need someone who's, and luckily I had my wife and a very good friend and business partner who is now one of my business partners, and who was just, one was the pull and one was the push. And I think every entrepreneur needs that, because it's almost turmoil in your head, because you think about what you've got, and and the security that having a salary has, and then, well, I've got all this security, and you know, and me and Ian, my business partner, for 6 months, we didn't make any money, and it was okay. We knew we know we're really good, and we know we can do this, but then you start second guessing yourself and you start questioning yourself, and every entrepreneur has been in that, and I'm sure this will resonate with so many entrepreneurs. They've all been in that position where, you know, why isn't it clicking? Why? But you just have to be resilient, and that's the most important thing. You have to be resilient. You have to push through. And I think the thing that sort of was the push for me is I saw my immigrant parents and everything they came to the UK with nothing. And to build a business and to have put all of us through university and you know, pushing my father's really pushed on education. You've got to study. So I think, but study within the parameters of working in the convenience store at the same time. So you had to juggle, you know, the whole of the you know, younger years was juggling. So so I think that to answer the question, the push and what's the defining moment, I think it's always a number of defining moments, but the I think the crystallizing moment was definitely a big contribution was my wife. Big contribution, and my current one of my current business partners.
How did you meet your wife? Out of interest.
We met in Birmingham through his family. We're Indian culture.
She's
Punjabi.
She's Swedish. Or?
No. My wife's Punjabi, but Danish.
Danish. I knew.
So
I knew. Yeah.
There's not many Punjabis in Denmark, but she has got family in my hometown of Birmingham, and we met. She wasn't convinced. No, not interested. So I think again, just you know, got to know her better, and like every relationship, sometimes you just have to work on these things, and eventually she said, "Oh, okay then."
To give you a chance,
a very slim chance, right? A very slim chance.
So, Ash, how does one go from working in a corner shop to being a CEO, you know, of a global company, a co-founder and a CEO of a global company? I mean, who teaches you that?
I think before you can have aspirations of, we had an aspiration of serving the UK, and then what you need is, I think fundamentally you need clients who trust you, because when you're dealing with global clients who have got offices all over the world, and they've got all sorts of challenges, whether it be cultural challenges, macroeconomic challenges, talent challenges, all of those challenges, they just need organisations that are consistent, that they can trust, and if the clients believe in you. Someone asked me, you know, we've got an office in Dubai, we've got an office in London, we're opening an office in Saudi Arabia, we're again toying with, we had an office in Switzerland, we're toying with opening an office in the US. But all of those ventures have been based on client demand. You know, we're very conscious of, you have to generate the demand and the client trust to then push into those markets, because otherwise you can spend a lot of time and investment and it not come to fruition. So I think it's very important for our clients to believe in us and say, okay, well, if you do this for us, we will support. And then obviously once you get the initial foot in the door, then you will target other organisations, etc. And so to do it is the push to go global or to have offices elsewhere. I think it's based on our client demand. But then I think then you've got all the other intricacies of running the operations, funding the operations, ensuring that you can manage capital, because most organisations will realise that capital management is their biggest problem, especially when you're dealing with clients who sometimes, may not pay you on time or within the line of terms. So trying to understand, and I was lucky when I worked for other organisations, I learned about a balance sheet, a P&L, how to cost manage, why credit control was so important, why having really good relationships with clients who, you could call up and say, look, we're not getting through to your accounts payable department, can you assist, etc. So you sort of learn that tradecraft, and then you think, okay, well, if I'm going to do this and try and scale that, these are the things that fundamentals that I have to keep, the building blocks of the business. On top of that, good accountants, good operation staff. My operation staff and the finance and the back office teams, they're so so under represented by sometimes the entrepreneurs, and they don't stress enough their importance. Whereas me, fundamentally the back office and the operations staff and the finance staff are really important, as is the sales and the coverage teams, as is the delivery teams, etc. So if you have that in the back of your head, and you really can keep that ecosystem sort of churning and ticking over, that's the key. But it's not easy. It's
You recently spoke at the HSBC Diverse Suppliers event. I think it must have been a week ago.
Yeah, it was a couple of weeks ago.
Yes. And one thing that you did mention, and you've just sort of touched on that briefly as well a few seconds ago, is trust.
Yep.
Okay, and you specifically mentioned that to build trust, you need to deliver consistently and be authentic.
Yep.
What does that mean to somebody who's watching this?
What it means is you will have, every single entrepreneur will have customers that believe in them. It's as simple as that. And when I say trust, is you have to have, and we're lucky at HSBC. We've got some members in the business who really, really trust our ability to support them and deliver for them consistently. So having the business sponsors trust you is really, really important. But that trust comes from consistent delivery. So they're joined at the hip. If you consistently deliver for your clients, they will trust you more. And you've got to show them how passionate you are about what you do and about their business. Because I've had, in my 25-year career, probably a little bit longer, I've come out of presentations to clients, and then I've thought, okay, are we going to win that work? And then, quite surprisingly, have won the work, competing with much bigger institutions. And when I've sat down with the client to say, do a bit of a follow-up and say, okay, well, why did you choose us? Because that's good to know. You, as an entrepreneur, you want to know you should want to know the things you do well and why the client likes that. And you should know the things you haven't done well and why the client didn't like that. Because if you don't, you haven't got the ability to improve. So by sitting down with clients and saying to them afterwards, look, well, why did you go with us? And for them to tell you it's because of these things, but also you were just more passionate about the other suppliers, that's like the holy grail. Because if they can see your passion for wanting to deliver, that's fantastic. So trust, consistent service, and authenticity and passion, I think, are they're your fundamentals in your toolbox.
So in terms of your particular path, you obviously CEO of two different companies. What's the difference between Alexander Ash and Consultant Professionals? Do they handle different parts of the market, or is it?
Alexander Ash has got different elements to it. So it's got a search element to it, executive search element to it. It's got a contingent recruitment business. It's got a contracting recruitment business. So that's something that's supported clients for a number of years, financial services, and a number of other sectors. Consulting Professionals was born out of client demand. So clients coming to us and saying, look, we're fed up of the status quo. We're fed up of having consultants in our business who are providing consultative work for them, whether it be on a fixed price basis or on a time and materials basis. But those individuals, firstly, the access to them, the price points that the organisations are being charged for them, and a lot of the work would come under the term of staff augmentation. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So by listening to these clients and then having a third partner in the business now who had sat on the other side of the fence, who sat as a client, Amjad Riaz is one of our other partners in the business, and Amjad had worked for some of these financial institutions for 25 years. So, and then understanding how programs or projects are managed, how what the difference is between a fixed deliverable and a time and materials piece of work, getting the understanding of what a managed service looks like, what an SLA looks like, and how those things are threaded together to ensure that the outcomes for the business or the clients are delivered. Mm-hmm. That's what we brought that mentality into Consulting Professionals. Mm-hmm. So being a true challenger to consultancies and saying, okay, we can deliver these projects, we can put a wrapper and a framework around them to ensure there's managed deliverables, there's consistent delivery, there's defined SLAs, all of the things that a client would appreciate when they're working with a larger institution than ourselves. We've now got some fantastic clients who trust us to provide a consultative system of delivery of real outcomes for their businesses. And that's what I think true consulting is. Not to provide amazing decks on PowerPoint and pretty pictures to say, well, this is what we think we can do for you. We're not interested in that in Consulting Professionals. We're purely interested in execution and delivery of real outcomes for our clients.
Excellent. One thing I know as well is that your recruitment business focuses on a niche market.
Yep.
And I mean, I was quite amazed when we first started talking, and I realized that I didn't know so much about it. So is it possible to maybe just tell us a bit about, because I think you specialize in change management, which is kind of like a niche industry.
Yeah, we wanted to make sure that we're going to market with something that we see or we had seen happening around us and not being done very well. So to go to clients and saying, well, the biggest issue for most clients, especially in the digital world, is how they transform their businesses. So how do they effect change and how do they transform and scale that transformation? So we made a conscious decision to specialize in that area. We've supported some of the largest consultancies in the world. We've supported some of the largest companies in the world, and at the heart, all of them are going through major transformation, major digital transformation, major cyber transformation. They've got resilience issues and operational resilience issues, and how they fundamentally manage the change of the demand from their customers. So if you're doing a transformational change program, you want the best talent to be able to deliver it, but not only the best talent, the individuals who are really understanding customer requirements and outcomes, opposed to you hear of individuals who build amazing apps and platforms, and then all of a sudden they go, well, it's not really happening because there's no take up. Because I think they fundamentally got it wrong. What they need to do is understand what the client really wants and demand, and having a customer centric approach. So we've made sure we've done that, and we started off in financial services, and now we've got demand in the defence sector, in the financial services sector. We've got demand in the energy and renewable sector, which is one of probably the fastest growing sectors for us. The demand on energy, the demand on renewable energy is enormous. The race to carbon neutrality is on the lips of every single person who works in a large corporation, and it should be. But I think also there's other factors that organisations are trying to manage, such as the social impact and social and the governance, internal governance. So I think everyone's heard the term ESG.
Yeah.
Throughout most organisations, ESG will fundamentally need them to transform their businesses, and once regulators start pushing the envelope as far as what the regulatory landscape looks like, there'll be a lot of transformation that's needed.
Okay, and in terms of your business, I know you've basically been able to make considerable inroads as a diverse supplier.
Yep.
Okay, and I mean, some of the people watching might not understand what it means to be a diverse supplier. So first of all, can you explain what it is to be a diverse supplier? And then also maybe just give us a bit of color as to how people can tap into that space. Because I know a lot of companies trying to improve their ESG credentials are basically turning to diverse suppliers.
Yep.
And there might be somebody watching who might have a business that they're starting out on, and they're not quite sure how to make inroads into the diverse supplier market.
I think there's a lot of work being done to help minority or diverse suppliers. And if you look at the landscape of corporate England and the entrepreneur landscape, there's a lot of individuals who want to do a good service to their clients. But how do they get to do that, and how do they get representation? And it's very clear, before even the supplier journey, if you look at most corporations, they struggle with diversity, and that whether that's from individuals from different racial backgrounds, whether it's different individuals, just purely gender diversity, forget minority groups, but even if it's just gender diversity, they struggle. You've got the LGBT community, you've got lots of different individuals who feel unrepresented within corporations. That's the first thing. So organisations are doing a lot more work, but then so much more needs to be done. There needs to be representation from the most senior levels, from the board level, and then through the organisation. But this fundamentally goes back to the work that's been done with all of these minority or diverse communities, even back to school. How gender diversity will then feed into some of the STEM subjects, and how that will feed into what the course is that maybe men will traditionally pursue, and what women might not. So there's not enough work being done, I believe, on those subjects and tackling that. Corporations now have the opportunity to look at their landscape and say, okay, well, we don't have the representation internally as far as our employee base, but also what does the representation, if we can't affect that change, what other ways can we affect change from a diversity point of view? And the work being done in the diverse supplier community, there's certain organisations in the United Kingdom, so there's one, Minority Suppliers Diversity UK. So what the work they're doing is they're creating a platform for diverse suppliers to come to them, prove that they're a truly diverse supplier, and you have to be, I think it's over 50% minority owned, or whatever the minority is. You have to be able to prove that, and then you get an accreditation. And then that platform is then also has a platform of clients. So clients can join. There's a membership for both clients and for suppliers. And it's bringing those communities together and bringing those ecosystems together. So supplier diversity, so firstly is to provide the opportunity. So provide the opportunity to diverse suppliers. Secondly, make the quantitative commitment. Yeah, and the shining light in this space is Ford. Yeah, the Ford Motor Company since 1978, and the number's enormous.
Has billions, I think.
Committed $161 billion to 10%. That's 10% of their overall spend since 1978.
That's gone up. It's going up to 15%.
15%.
Yeah.
So Ford will commit 15% of their overall spend externally with suppliers to diverse suppliers. Now, that is definitely a shining light. And large corporations have to put the stake in the ground and have to fundamentally commit quantitative figures, so that this is the quantity, the real dollar spend or sterling spend we will put towards diverse suppliers, and we'll commit to it. And then you can also go back from there, and think, okay, well, that's your end goal. How are you going to get there? You need to look at it's the metrics of anything. It's the numbers game, and it's all in the data. So what does your current supplier base look like? How many suppliers have you met and spoke to can fundamentally meet the risk frameworks internally, etc.? It's the same with recruitment or providing consulting. When we talk to clients around advising them around, okay, what's your slate look like as far as minorities that you've interviewed, and if you're not committing to real data on the individuals that are coming through the process, and you don't understand the numbers that it takes, the number of interviews it might take to hire one person from a minority background, then you're never going to make an impact.
That's very interesting. So would you say, from your experience and from your interactions with clients, that there is sufficient commitment across board to do something about the diversity inequality, or is it just something that companies just talk about? Because it's quite easy to talk about it, to go to shows and to have different things that are basically put a spotlight in the media. But then beneath that veneer, are people really committed to diversifying the boardroom and senior management?
I think there is definitely the aspiration. Yeah, there's definitely the aspiration, and all the senior leaders that I speak to on a regular basis, they have the aspiration to want to diversify not only the boards, but the board plus one, and then fundamentally throughout the organisation. That's the aspiration. Now, every corporation has a number of different topics they need to deal with. Shareholder return, yeah. Now, the state of the macroeconomic market, so there's lots, how ESG is impacting them, how the climate conversation, how operational resilience, etc. So there's so many layers that the board has to deal with, and CEOs and chairmen, they will sit there and they'll look across the landscape and say, and fundamentally, no matter how we look at it, a corporation, a listed organisation's first and fundamental commitment is to the shareholders, to returning shareholder value.
Absolutely.
So trying to ensure that's happening, and then look at all the other topics that need to be addressed. It's a difficult landscape, but I definitely feel there's the aspiration. I think some organisations are committed and will make a quantitative commitment,
like Ford.
Yeah. I think others are going on that journey. The day with HSBC was extremely refreshing, and to see HSBC committing to a year-on-year percentage growth in their spend with diverse suppliers. So that was. I won't mention the figures because I'm not sure if they were to be made public, but it was for the audience on the day. So I think, but I've seen those figures, and there is a real commitment by HSBC, year-on-year commitment to increase their spend with diverse suppliers. So I think there are organisations who will make that commitment. There are organisations who have the aspirations. I definitely think there's a lot more work that needs to be done, because 10% of your external spend on suppliers, I think can be done, because you've got one organisation, which is Ford, who are doing it and now increasing that from 10 to 15%. Yeah. So it can be done. I think the commitment will come. I genuinely think the commitment will come. The aspiration is definitely there. We call it transition to. This is your current state. It's like any transformation program. This is your current state. This is a future state. It's the transition to program that the corporations need to get right.
That's very good. So for somebody who's watching this episode, and because I know we're talking about companies demonstrating their commitment to changing the diversity landscape. But then you and I know that at the end of the day, it's not simply about getting people who look different, to certain positions of power. They need to deliver. Okay. At the end of the day, like as you're saying, businesses exist for shareholders. Okay. This is not a joke. This is serious stuff. Okay. How can somebody who's watching this position themselves to be substantial enough, to sit in the boardroom and to have a meeting with senior people? I mean, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, you can't go to a board meeting and to be faffing around. You've got to be in your element. You've got to know what you're talking about. You've got to be able to read the room. You've got to be able to know the jargon. You've got to know what value you're bringing. You've got to have the confidence in you to speak up and to basically contribute. Now, unless people have been given that opportunity, probably further down the line, they're not going to suddenly. You can't pick somebody, simply because of the colour of their skin and drop them in the boardroom. They'll fail.
That's true. I think. In my mind, I think there's a step before that, and I'll tell you what I see from my own experience, and I see it, and this is the difference. I actually see it. You have two words that bring together everything we're talking about. You have the word diversity, and then you have a word that I don't think isn't done very well, is inclusion. Right. Diversity, in my eyes, is giving is ensuring that you have the right people in the right places at the right time. So ensuring that you've invested in diversity and you've got those individuals in your organisation. There's a lot of work being done on diversity. So, and have you ticked the box? I'm going to say, have you ticked the box? I'm not saying it's a tick boxing exercise. So let's be clear about that. Have you ticked that box? That's diversity. Now, the real work starts on inclusion, because there's no use bringing a black board member or an Indian board member or a female board member into the boardroom, or board plus one or board plus two, or in any team, and then not having them being treated inclusively so they can succeed. Now, this is the biggest issue that I see, is individuals go into these organisations and there's a lot of aspirations for them to get in. Let's get the right diverse individuals and diverse suppliers. But are those individuals being treated in an inclusive manner? Right, because if you can't get that right, I've seen some seriously talented senior individuals phone me up and say, it's like an episode of, Get Me Out of Here, the jungle. And I've had people phone me up, and these are very senior individuals, very successful, saying what I was told, the reasons I was brought in to make a change, etc. That's not happening because I'm not being included. And what you could say is, well, anyone on that level should be able to operate and break down the barriers and be able to make sure they're included. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about, is the path to success. So if you're investing in diversity and diverse suppliers, diversity in your workforce, etc., make sure you've got an inclusive culture. Because if you don't have an inclusive culture, they will not succeed.
So Ash, why do you think they're not being included? Do you think it's a cultural thing or it's a competence thing?
It's definitely not a competence thing.
Okay.
It's definitely not a competence thing because
as you're saying, these are good people. So
Daniel, there's incompetent people in every single corner of society. So it's not a competency thing. And organisations are set up, especially in this current environment. We're not talking 30 years ago, 40 years ago. We're talking about in the current environment. There's everything. There's psychometric testing. There's psych testing. There's every sort of testing, Myers-Briggs, this, that, etc. There's everything that goes on. Then you've got the interview process. It's a really fundamental, rigid, structured interview process. So organisations can't put it on, we've just chosen a bad egg.
Okay. There's too many filters to go through.
That's not acceptable. And the individuals, I'm not saying that doesn't happen. I'm sure that you will get a person who's
slipping
got to an organisation and we've all had it.
Yeah.
But I think if you bring diversity into your organisation, the biggest struggle in diversity at the moment, forget all the minority groups, ethnicity groups, but just gender diversity. We can't, most corporations can't get gender diversity right, So, and then after that, there's a whole, individuals from Black heritage are unrepresented. Yep, fundamentally unrepresented throughout corporate England, corporate European corporations. They just are. Yeah. Now you could say, is there enough Black representation coming through? Yeah. I think there is. I think there is enough Black representation coming through, but I think, is there enough to identify them? Is there enough to make sure those individuals are set up for success? I went to this diversity day. I met a fantastic lady, Vivian Cole, and she talked to me about an external body that she's working with called the Solaris Group. And Solaris, as I understand them, I don't know enough about them, but I understand Solaris are helping organisations like HSBC develop pathways for leadership. So how do you identify successful people of Black heritage, not just Black, I'm sure it's not just Black heritage,
Black Asian,
but minority community, and how you give them the pathways to success, how you give them the right training and development, things that you talked about. So some of the other skills that you might need to navigate a boardroom or to navigate court audit committee or whatever it might be. So I think there is definitely a lot more work to be done on inclusion. There's a lot more work to be done on diversity, but I think inclusion is where a lot of organisations get it wrong.
Oh, interesting. Ash, what do you do to relax? I know you travel a lot. You're so busy. It's even a miracle I managed to get you here today.
Yeah. What I do to relax, what I love doing, and I probably would say is the thing that helps me to relax the most, is to go to a restaurant with the family, because we've got quite a we've got a 17-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 6-year-old. And for me and my wife to go out and take them out and give them real experiences and just talk. I try to make sure if we're all at home, we always eat dinner together. I think that's really, really important. No one's allowed to go and have dinner in front of the TV or in the room or anything. That does never happen. It's something that my parents brought us up on. So just sitting around a table, and so we'll eat, and then we can probably sit there at the table for a good hour and a half. Outside that, I love to go on to any beach in the world. So if I go on holiday, I just like to sit on the beach. Although my wife's quite active, so she's like, "That's it, come on, everyone up, let's do a lot of sightseeing." So I probably don't get enough time to sit with her on the beach and in the sun, and probably do a lot of sleeping when I'm sitting on a beach. Although, it's probably not what my wife wants me to be doing. So let's get out and go and see things. But that's probably how I relax. With friends, it's really important to see friends, family, food, music. So they're the things that keep me relaxed.
Fantastic. How do you balance? Actually, I like sitting on the beach as well. One of the places beaches I love is the beach in Dubai, the Marina Beach. It's absolutely fantastic.
I know it well.
I know.
I know. Jumeirah and I know both those beaches really well. Too well.
I could just sit there and just.
It's like the sun rays. That's.
How do you balance? Because both yourself and your wife are extremely busy.
Yeah.
How do you manage that dynamic in your marriage and your home and all that?
Look, I think, Daniel, like everyone, I think sometimes you manage it well, sometimes you don't. And if running a household, both of you being busy, ambitious, companies, friends, families, etc., you have a lot to manage. So how do we manage it? Sometimes we manage it really well. Sometimes we manage it badly, but the thing is how do you keep it together? That's the key thing, I think. And look, we will have disagreements. Then you'll sit down and talk about it. The kids will do something that you're not happy with, and one of you will be extremely irate about it. One of you will be quite chilled about it. Then you're almost like, well, why are we not on the same page? So all of those things happen. That's families. That's relationships. Relationships are about ups and downs, etc. But it's what you learn from them, and nobody ever learned from success. Yeah, and you've heard so many people say that. I saw something on I think it was Instagram, and Denzel Washington speaking in front of so many people in the public at the Oscars, and so he was at the Oscars, and and he was saying like he never learned anything from his successes; it's only from his failures, and that's true. We have to fail to learn. We have to fail to succeed. We have to fail to help others. We have to fail to pass on experience. Because if everything went really, really well, we wouldn't be sitting here now.
Yeah.
Because we've got nothing to talk about. How's it going, Ash? Everything's going really well.
I wish.
How's business? Really good. Right, and
that's not really seen.
Yeah, but you get that conversation with my 17-year-old. How was school? Good. How was training? Great.
Same with my son.
good day. Yeah, right. Great. So I think. Look, managing family life, managing a relationship, managing work, managing family. That's why they call it managing. Yeah, because you have to make effort. You have to deal with disappointments. You have to deal with success. All of those things. So look, when I'm not perfect, and if I sat here and said I was, none of the audience would believe me anyhow. So look, every day we're on a journey, and I'm learning every day, learning about myself very often. Learning about the people around me, etc. But that's the best bit about it. That's the fun bit about it.
Yeah. As we prepare to wrap up this chat, one thing we've spoken about off camera, obviously, is your passion to see others. Because you talk about pathway, and I think one of the pathways is, showing people what they need to do. I mean, I've interviewed some people recently, and it's really sad when somebody comes and they don't get the job because of something really silly, you know, and it's just something really silly, and I can see what it is, and I can see it was a silly mistake, but I can't, I can't put in a word for them because it's a collaborative process, and the consensus might be, oh no, this might not be the best person, and it's just something really tiny, and I know that you're very passionate about making an impact, and you've spoken about yourself and some of your friends who are like-minded, try to do something for the community. Is this something that perhaps maybe we can work on together and make happen in the future? Because I thought it was a brilliant idea. I'm not quite sure how it comes together, but
my idea, and it's not like the most exciting idea. It's pretty simple. What I'd like to do is create an inner city number of inner city clinics, and if you look at the current school system, they're heavily underinvested in careers advice. And you could turn around and say, well, simple things like, what does a good CV look like? But nowadays you could say, I want to write a CV, get ChatGPT to write it for me. The problem with that is there's been no input from yourself. There's been no design, there's no fundamentally understanding what a good CV looks like. So I think, just to give ChatGPT all the data and let it throw a CV at you, what the problem you're going to have is when you put that CV in front of a interviewer and they start going through your CV and ask you questions about your CV and you don't have the answers about, did I actually write that? When did I do that? 4 years ago? And that will happen. So you get found out. So I think it's important to get a CV clinic, inner city CV clinic, an inner city interview clinic. So to teach people, when I say teach, not give them the answers, but go through
the mindset, the process.
Go through the process, what a first interview looks like, what a second interview looks like, what a third interview looks like, what are competency-based questions, what do they try to achieve, what are the interviewers looking for? And then finally, what I'd like is to do that, and I'm sure there's other elements we can add, and there's much smarter people than myself that could help. And then what I've also want to do is tap into my network in the City of London or Birmingham and reach out to individuals from minority backgrounds who've had success. And because what I don't think minority communities have is enough mentors and enough individuals who can inspire them. If you speak to most people and say, give me the names of the people who inspire you, we go back in history. Someone asked me the other day, so, who do you see as a real inspiration? And I said Gandhi. We're going back to 1947, and prior to that, or who else? And so I think there's not enough. There's not enough mentors and individuals who can tell their story. We fundamentally are. Someone told me, who's one of my mentors, someone told me humans are a product of stories. Because from a very young age, we were told at the age of 4, everybody sit on the carpet and we're going to listen to a story. So we really, as human beings, we buy into stories. We want to hear people's story because they're the things that enthuse us. They're the things that we sit there and go, well, okay, that's really inspiring, etc. And there's not enough of that. I don't think, and I'm guilty of that as well. And hence I've tried to start doing a lot more work in going to these types of days, doing podcasts, etc. Only to tell people my story and nothing more than that. I'm obviously busy and I've got companies to run, etc. But I think individuals, especially the youth of today, they need inspiration very often. I don't think there's enough investment from governments, and that's a sad thing, right? Because if you talk about some of the figures you get thrown around, I think there'll be over 1 million open vacancies just in the tech community within the next 5 years. So 1 million, the advance of AI, etc. All of these things are coming. is there the investment to ensure that people have the right training and the pathways to success? Maybe for more privileged individuals, is there the same pathways from people from minority communities or inner city communities? I don't think there is. I had an example. It was a really tough example. We're working with a school in Tower Hamlets. One of my COO went and chatted to one of the teachers, and she said, "Oh, we've got someone, we'd love to do an intern with you." And we said, "Okay." And we said, "Why?" He said, "Well, because he can't go to university." He said, "Why?" "Because he's on track for 3 A stars at this school in his A levels, but his parents have got a restaurant, and they really need him to now take over the restaurant and work in the restaurant." And it was like, okay, but he really wants to go to university, so is there a way that can be managed, etc.? It's tough, it's difficult, because that's a family commitment, but there's got to be pathways for those individuals to say, yeah, or better education to say, look, these are the opportunities that are available to someone who can go to university. But also then there's the cost. And the parents didn't know how he would even get a scholarship, or who you talk to, the documentation, etc. So I think there's lots of different things that can be done, but trying to give back is and look, and sometimes I think the one thing that we have real control over is time. So to give back a bit of time, is sometimes not that difficult to do. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't.
Great. What do you think of this podcast and what we're trying to do?
I think it's brilliant. I think I've watched a good few of them, and I think, like I said to you, to watch people talk about their story is fundamentally the most important thing that I ever pick up in podcasts. And podcasts are always one of those things that everyone will take a bit, a chunk, a block out and go, that's the bit I really remembered from a podcast. And that's enough, because that's really returning something back to the community, or giving people a platform. There's not enough platforms. This is a platform. This is a platform for people to have a voice and for people to listen to. So that's a platform, right? And if you look at the future, and you hear it in my world, people talk about platform economics, right? It's about the future of platforms. This, and everyone's going to be investing in platforms in the future. And what I think is supplier diversity platforms, MSD UK, yourself today. All you're doing is giving the individuals a platform, the connectivity, the ecosystem to work within. Whether people write into yourself and say, well, could I actually speak to that individual more? Can I get the person's contact details, etc.? That could happen. I don't know. People wanting advice on business, etc. That could happen. So I think it's great. I think thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for coming.
I think that's really important. Yeah. One thing I want to say, I have an analogy that I use when I do any conversation, and I'd love to say it was something I thought of. And I addressed a speech again at HSBC's offices a number of years ago. And someone said to me, look, Ash, can you come and talk about diversity and inclusion? And I said, okay. And fundamentally why it's important. And I said, well, okay, I think it's quite simple. I think diversity is giving everyone a ticket to the disco. I think inclusion is letting them dance and really investing in them dancing. So if we can dance together, then
why not?
We're moving in the right direction.
Fantastic. Before you go, I know you also are on the lookout for people who have breakthrough sort of technologies, or new age technologies and stuff like that, who need like seed capital and stuff like that. So maybe you can just tell us a bit about it.
Yeah, there's a few individuals, few investors that I know who are always looking to talk to organisations who have either already on their journey and need further seed capital, or are at the start and they're just trying to bootstrap their organisation. Yeah, there's a whole community of investors, especially for diverse companies, entrepreneurs that really want to know who they are and the types of technologies, especially if it's impactful technology in the sectors we talked about, energy and renewables, financial services, defence, public sector transformation. Yeah, there's a lot of appetite to talk to organisations that are doing that.
Fantastic. And we have a tradition of this podcast of giving our guests the opportunity to dedicate this episode to anyone or any group of people of their choice. It can be more than one person. So who would you like to... And you can look in the camera for that.
Yeah. Who would I like to have? Probably my biggest thank you goes to my wife. Because she puts up with a lot. She puts up with a lot, and I know... so definitely to my wife because of the support. Probably it's probably the wrong sentence to use, but by pushing me off the cliff to actually go off and start the companies and just get on with it. Put up and or shut up was the words. So definitely my wife and everything she does. My parents, who I think had a massive hill to climb or mountain to climb when they came to the UK, 1961, and they faced all sorts of adversity, whether it be racial discrimination, whether it be trying to set up an organisation, to run a business, etc., especially in a very diverse, multicultural environment, and to be accepted. My partners, who know who they are, and Ian Alexander and Amjad Riaz, and I think probably the biggest support group in my life and my business partners' lives outside my wife and my family is my staff, because they all work tirelessly to help the organisation succeed, and they're fantastic. And then my clients who believe in us, who want us to succeed. They realise that we are good at what we do, and with their help we'll only get stronger and do more for more organisations. So thank you to you all.
Great. If you've enjoyed this episode, as I believe you have, I'd like you to do a couple of things. I'd like you to leave some comments. Comments are very important. Up in the YouTube algorithm picks it up. I'd also like you to like, share, and subscribe, because the bigger this platform gets, the easier it will be to get guests on to share their stories. So on that note, thank you very much, Ash, for your time. And to our viewers, see you next week. Thanks, Ash.
Thanks a lot.
Glad we did this.
Yeah.